A juvenile Skullcrawler versus the Jaw Titan from Attack on Titan, which I don't really know about because I've never watched Attack on Titan and I know very little details about that. But I do know a little bit about the Skullcrawlers, and I'll be honest, I'm already rooting for the Skullcrawler. And the only reason I know it's a juvenile is because I already went ahead and read the description, so yeah. Anyways, this is a battle face-off analysis by Goji Center, and yeah, let's just go ahead and get into it. Alright, let's see how this goes. I think the Skullcrawler's gonna win because, you know, things in the Kaijuverse are just way too broken and overpowered at times. And, well, I'm not saying any stuff in the Attack on Titan universe isn't, but I don't think they are ever winning against the Kaijuverse. Like, it ain't happening. Especially if they have to use a juvenile Skullcrawler instead of, you know, the big one. Like, because that just tells me that you totally would lose if we did fight the big one, and we're already having to do a handicap for it, so yeah.
Today, the battle arena will be hosted two of the most dangerous creatures to ever appear in cinema history. On one end, a ferocious predator straight from hell, with an appetite so intense that its livelihood depends on the act of killing, eating,
I didn't know there's an animated
repeating.
version.
Skull Island's Skullcrawler.
Hell
On the
yeah.
other end, an agile and dangerous combatant brought to life by supernatural powers. Half human and half monster, the Jaw Titan. In this battle, two different universes will cross over, bringing forth two...
Man, some of them Titan shifters look ugly as hell when they transform, not gonna lie. Like, ugh.
battle-hardened combatants to fight in a bloody duel to the death. Taking into account agility, intelligence, weapons, and more to determine who survives and who dies. The rules are simple. No retreat, no prisoners, no mercy. Who will win? Find out at the end on Goji Center's Monster Face-Off.
I'm still rooting for the Skullcrawler.
Before we enter the...
Because, like, I don't think it's gonna lose. Then again, I could be wrong. Who knows? Maybe the Jaw Titan's got some shit that I don't know of, and maybe it will win. I don't know. But, regardless, I root for the Skullcrawler because, well, shitting the Kaijuverse is just way stronger, way cooler than the Attack on Titan, in my opinion. Yeah.
analysis platform, let's first make clear who exactly will be facing off today. Beginning with the Skullcrawlers, these animals come in all shapes and sizes, with some specimens seen to measure more than 40 feet to Skullcrawlers of titanic proportions. For this battle, we'll aim to use one of the smaller ones, such as this juvenile Skullcrawler from Kong Skull Island.
Yeah, because we gotta make it fair somehow.
The Attack on Titan cinematic universe, which features supernatural beings that take form as giant humans that can seemingly materialize out of thin air. These come in many shapes and forms, each with its own unique ability. Today, we'll use one from the Jaw Titan class to go up against the Skullcrawler, more specifically, one known as Porco Galliard. Now that we know who exactly...
Something that's all offense and is very small and extremely agile. Maybe it has an advantage over. Well, who knows? We'll see.
Is facing off in this battle, we are now ready to enter the analysis platform. Number one, mass. The creature that wins the edge in this category will not only prove to have the greater mass, but also be the one who can use it to his advantage.
No.
Skullcrawler.
I don't know who's going to have the advantage over this, because we already had to use a small Skullcrawler. Because, like, I'm pretty sure just the big Skullcrawler just absolutely screws over the Jaw Titan.
Their sizes are one of the most fluctuating of any of the largest.
Especially whenever they bite the back of their necks, because supposedly the Titan's weakness is on the back of their necks, which, you know, I guess that'll be something they have to figure out, but who knows?
Predators in the Monsterverse, so they're...
And something tells me that I'm willing to bet that they're still vulnerable in other areas besides just the back of their neck. Like, I feel like there is, because, like, I just do. I don't know. I mean, I feel like the back of the neck is just a straight up kill point or whatever. And again, I could be wrong.
Is no exact set size for these. We are just given a range, which ended up being surpassed in GVK. As mentioned already, we'll stick with a juvenile specimen, but exactly how big and heavy is the one we're using in this scenario?
Well,
our Skullcrawler will be similar in height to its opponent, reaching heights of anywhere between 13 to 15 feet, depending on its posture, and up to 50 feet in length fully extended. Unfortunately, this puts it at around the size of a V-Rex, which was stated to be a little less than 17 tons.
Okay.
We can estimate the Skullcrawler size using these dimensions provided, assuming an average body density of 1,400 kilograms per meter cubed.
That'd be an interesting fight to see, too. A Skullcrawler facing off a V-Rex, too. Huh. Or at least one of this size, because I imagine the V-Rex stands no chance against the big ones.
Giving us a rough estimate of around 17.183 tons.
All right.
Very close to the V-Rex, but perhaps a little heavier given that dinosaurs have a lighter body density than other reptiles of comparable size due to the hollow bones and air sacs. The result being a Skullcrawler of 17 to 18 US tons. So, how about this Jaw Titan?
Well,
this Titan classification is the smallest out of the 9 Titan forms. Being the smallest also means that this one is going to have crucial advantages that others don't have, and some weaknesses that will be discussed later. Right now,
like being ugly as hell? Is that an advantage it gets?
know that most of these Jaw Titans were 5 meters or a little more than 16 feet in height on average.
Oh, it already looks better in the
metric
anime.
here can get a little wonky. It is mentioned that these Titans are a lot lighter than they look. Additionally, we cannot assume that every Jaw Titan is the exact same weight, given that each Jaw Titan in history is slightly different and carries a different amount and arrangement of armor.
Makes sense.
The best we can do in this case is to use the square cubed law and scale up Porco Galliad, the Titan shifter, up to this size. By scaling his exact dimensions to this height in this posture of 5 meters, we get a Titan that weighs 6,985.7 kilograms or 6.89 US tons. That looks a little heavier than expected, but considering that these guys are said to be lighter than they look, shaving off a bit of weight would be reasonable. And accounting for the armor mounted on this Jaw Titan, we are looking at a metric of anywhere between 4.5 to 5 tons. Either way, still nowhere near the estimated weight of our Skullcrawler. This may look as a disadvantage for this edge, but may be beneficial for the Jaw Titan in later
I feel like it could go either way with advantage and disadvantage, because one has a easier time getting around and everything. Meanwhile, if the Skullcrawler pins it down, it's gonna have trouble getting out if it can get out of being pinned down by Skullcrawler in the first place.
Categories. The Jaw Titan loses this category. For overall mass, the first edge will go to the Skullcrawler.
All right.
Number 2, armor. In terms of having a protective surface...
Yeah, I feel like that one's going to the Titan because of the weakness on the nape thing. Well, unless the Skullcrawler has some kick-ass armor that I don't know either. But I imagine it does with how thick its skin is.
The Skullcrawler does not have much to boast about. Upon looking at this animal, we find that there are absolutely no signs of any plate armor or any osteoderms fastened by any notably thick hide.
Never mind.
We've seen in the past that this hide provides very little resistance against cuts from sharp-bladed weapons. But what Skullcrawlers are known for is their levels of resilience. That's right, these guys will be able
so instead of armor, we got pain resistance.
to soak up a lot of
pain tolerance,
damage even if their skin gets lacerated many times. Even though this skin won't protect from cuts such as these, this animal will be able to withstand repeated exposure to very high temperatures and flame weaponry. This creature's dense musculature and rigid bone structure are enough to keep this guy functioning and viable for combat for...
Yeah, I'm actually not sure which one is more dangerous. Something with high armor or something with extremely high pain tolerance, because if it's just going to keep on coming after you, even if it's still getting hurt, I imagine that would still... Well, both are equally dangerous, pretty much.
An extended period of time. But why? In a few moments, we'll discuss an interesting attribute that keeps this animal going thanks to a strange hormonal state. But we aren't saying that all parts of the Skullcrawler are completely bare and unprotected. The most resistant part of this animal's body is its head.
Yeah, I figured.
This thick skull secured the brain from very strong impacts such as heavy blows inflicted by boulders.
Damn!
And was even used as a weapon of sorts when ramming. Resistant enough to shatter ceratopsian frills. To prevent the brain from getting rattled, this animal's long, elastic tongue could have also aided here. Skullcrawler tongues work similar to that of woodpeckers in that they are retractable. Once pulled back, these wrap around the brain, serving as a cushion to prevent getting damaged from any impact.
It can also be used as a tool of restraint too, so that'll be another thing. That motherfucker working like Yoshi.
keeping the brain in operating state despite getting hit extremely hard.
That'd be an interesting thing. Yoshi versus some with actually, no, that's an unfair fight. Yoshi would beat the shit out of a bunch of dinosaurs.
To say that Skullcrawlers have the same anatomy, but probably something similar to mitigate shocks to the brain. Not all Titan shifters are known for their armor.
No.
In fact, most of them are chiefly bare, some without skin for protection. However, Porco's version of the Jaw Titan...
Well, aren't they just only weak on the back of the neck? Well, I guess I was right. Maybe even then, they still get damage without being hit on the back of the neck.
Does come with a neat feature in front of its skull, an armored face. This is made out of the same material known as Titan crystals, a material unknown in the real world, but most definitely many times tougher than bone, given that these can repel projectiles from many sorts of firearms. This armor is limited to just the front of the head and not the entirety of the cranium. The rest of the body will be susceptible to slashes, cuts, bites, and bruising. Therefore, it's possible that this Titan in this fight will always aim to keep its face in front of the Skullcrawler to serve as a sort of shield to protect its vulnerable body. The best armor that this Titan brings to its battle is in the form of agility, mostly relying on dodging rather than its protection on its face. To be fair, these Titans are...
It might be a bit of like a glass cannon, like, you know, one small damage does a lot to it.
Pretty resilient as well, often continuing fights after their whole limbs would be shot off, and even staying conscious during impalement on its torso. Both of these creatures bring similar armor distributions and stand equal in terms of vulnerable surface area. Whether they are better at dodging hits is still up for debate. For now, both the Skullcrawler and Jaw Titan will stand at a draw when it comes to corporal armor. Now, let's talk about which one of these two is more agile.
I think we already have a winner for
agility. For an animal of this size, there is no doubt that the Skullcrawlers were adapted for making agile maneuvers in order to maximize their predatory potential. Being animals that always need to be eating and killing
Go back. Was that a damn... Is that a... Hold on. Like...
There is no doubt that the Skullcrawlers were adapted for making agile maneuvers.
Was that the Giga from Ark? I couldn't tell. Like, go... I gotta get a good look at that. I feel like this is the Giga from Ark. I think. I could be wrong.
Agile maneuvers in order to maximize their predatory potential. Being animals that always need to be eating and killing means that they should be able to move through all sorts of environments.
Isn't that something about I think that's something I heard about the Skullcrawlers, that they are never not hungry or something.
And capable of chasing down just about anything. The difference between this guy and its opponent is that this animal has only 2 limbs in contrast to the Jaw Titan who has 4. The Jaw Titan will be able to take
that'll definitely be a disadvantage.
Quadrupedal stance thanks to its elongated arms that help not only give it better reach, but also use its arms for locomotion. To aid the Skullcrawler in balance, it must heavily rely on its tail. Fortunately for this Skullcrawler, this is a prehensile body part, so it can be used as a limb as well, undulating on the ground.
Yeah, creatures with long-ass tails usually end up making more use out of them than you'd think, which is pretty cool, actually.
Side to side to provide stability, aiding in making sharp turns and used as a counterweight. The best example of this is when this animal was able to complete a 180 turn in less than a second thanks to the tail that was used as both a counterweight and a lethal weapon.
Alright, so it might be slower than the Jaw Titan, but it's definitely got that better turning radius, I guess.
As far as traveling on a plane or tunnels, this creature can be just as agile as any other animal. But once we enter tall, rugged terrain, we might have an issue when comparing it to the Jaw Titan. This Titan form is most agile when dashing through terrain on all 4s. If there is one attribute the Jaw Titan is known for, it's agility. We already established that these Titans are lighter than you might expect. This Jaw Titan form takes it a step further with impressive leaping abilities, capable of leaping and staying on top of vertical surfaces, aided by sharp sets of claws on the hands and feet. These help this Titan change directions in split seconds. Additionally, these long limbs help Jaw Titan titans swing through obstacles such as large trees, cliffs, and buildings. Complicated maneuvers outside the capabilities of the Skullcrawler. Remember, the Jaw Titan category depends on its agility for defense, meaning that it will very likely dodge a good number of the Skullcrawler's attacks. Porco in particular was trained in shock combat, and therefore it was imperative to master this skill. Although both of the contestants are very agile and capable of turning agile maneuvers into attacks, we find that the Jaw Titan is notably superior at maneuvering in all axes, giving an extremely crucial edge to the Jaw Titan for
Alright, so forget what I said about turning radius on the Skullcrawler.
Agility. These locomotive attributes are still up for grabs as we head to number 4, speed. The edge for speed will go to the combatant that can travel along a horizontal plane faster than the other.
I'm
Beginning
pretty
with
sure
the
that still goes to the Jaw
It's
Titan.
important to keep in mind that with this particular species, the younger the specimen, the faster it can move its legs to wind up speed. This was the case with the young Skullcrawler in Kong's Skull Island, able to abruptly reach speeds that can cover dozens of meters in 1 second. The only limitation here is that the Skullcrawler has only 2 legs. Had this been a creature with 4 legs, it would have arguably moved a bit faster. This is compensated by the tail. Yes, this tail, apart from being a crucial aid in agility, could also aid in propulsion. If undulating, this tail would have aided in sifting through the ground, acting as a...
I've never actually gotten a good look at this thing just walking, but like being able to walk on 2 arms with the tail and everything too, like like move, it's like slithering and walking at the same time. It's like what would happen if an actual snake was 1, buff at the top, and 2, had arms.
Sort of propeller in flat terrain, pushing its body forward at a faster speed depending on the viscosity of the ground. Skullcrawlers have the advantage of making longer strides since their legs are anatomically adapted to reach forward much further than another bipedal creature of similar size, even more than the Jaw Titan. Jaw Titans, however, are nowhere near being pushovers in this category. Out of the total of 9 Titan shifters, this one is the fastest of them all. Not only moving fast, but also leveraging its high speeds to make its attacks more lethal. Additionally, this Jaw Titan on quadrupedal stance is the perfect example of why a 4-legged creature in most cases is faster than a strictly bipedal animal. 4 points making contact with the ground allow this Titan to spend less energy per limb to push its body in a horizontal axis. This goes even further. A Titan of this size moving at such alarming speeds will need some sort of adaptation to help control this speed and make sharp turns. An interesting, and in this case helpful attribute of Jaw Titans is that most, if not all of them, are armed with sharp claws on all 4 appendages. Why is this important with speed? In the real world, cheetahs are the only felines that do not have retractable claws, one of the chief reasons why they are extremely fast runners. Instead of tucking them in, these claws help this animal have more traction with the ground, as a paw that does not grip the floor would slip slightly on a flat surface, making it waste energy with each stride. In contrast, claws that are exposed will grip the floor, preventing any of this said slipping, making use of 100% of the energy exerted in each stride, thus maximizing speed. For now, it's clear that the Jaw Titan maintains...
That's just got me fearful of what it would be like if bigger cats actually did that too.
its reputation as being unrivaled in terms of combat speed, giving it another edge in this category.
I figured both of those.
Number 5, stamina.
That might be a different story.
One important factor that will determine who wins this edge is how these creatures are anatomically built. Admittedly, little is known about the internal anatomy of Skullcrawlers, but we are given some hints that can help us understand it better. The most popular fact about these animals is that they go through something known as hyperphorism at all given times, meaning that these animals are never full and are wired to a state that they must always hunt.
I said that earlier.
This could be due to several reasons, such as hormonal imbalances in the stomach, stress, and a strangely fast digestive process thanks to its diet. Meat. If it wasn't obvious already, this animal's feeding habits may be the reason why this animal wins or loses this edge. Let us explain. Carnivores have a more concentrated and easily digestible source of energy compared to herbivores. Animal tissues tend to be rich in protein and fat and have a high energy yield per unit of food consumed, allowing meat eaters to get a lot of energy per meal. This is why you see herbivores eat all the time, in contrast to carnivores eating once every few days at times. Skullcrawlers unfortunately can't just rely on one meal every now and then. They need it all the time because they're stuck in an...
I'm like 100% sure that this model is the Giga from Ark, because just because of the roar I just heard. Like, I'm pretty sure that is, like, this is the Giga from Ark. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but, like, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. It's just a small, irrelevant detail I just wanted to make a note of.
Endless cycle of spending energy to digest food fast, having to replenish that energy hunting for food, just so that they can use that energy to, you guessed it, digest more food.
Yep.
This miserable cycle brings stress on the animal, making this creature behave erratic at times when it spots something to eat, tiring it faster during a fight if it doesn't consume anything.
Alright, so yeah, it might have lower stamina than the Jaw Titan then.
Are the Titans victims of a weakness such as this? No, they are a bit strange. These types of Titans can materialize from thin air, and once their transformation is complete, they are known for having high internal temperatures, canceling out heat exhaustion, and also not having to eat anything. It is said that most of these Titans gain their energy from the sun, photosynthesizing similar to plants, explaining why pure Titans aren't that active during nighttime, for the most
I guess
part.
so.
The 9 Titans are a bit different. Their supernatural forms don't require them to photosynthesize. They don't really breathe air despite having nostrils and a throat, and a strange ability to regenerate any body part. This is not limited to muscular tissue either, meaning that as these Titans move around, they will tire much slower over a long period of time with their constant regenerative ability healing.
Well, everything we're being introduced with right now, it just seems like the Skullcrawler might be fucked in this.
Their muscles as they are used. Having this self-regenerative ability would be the equivalent of a bodybuilder being capable of performing a few more reps on average thanks to their muscles recovering much faster. Similarly, in this fight, the smaller Jaw Titan will most likely recover faster from strenuous energy outputs, helping it fight for a longer time and winning a third edge in stamina, and keeping all 3 locomotive attributes.
Right.
Number 6, senses.
Alright.
Winning this edge will not only help the combatants be aware of the opponent's whereabouts, but also help in potentially setting up an ambush against the opponent, or
It'd also be extremely helpful if it has intelligence added upon that.
preventing it. Monarch's Skullcrawler dossier gives us some insight as to how good the Skullcrawler is at sensing other animals, or prey. Supposedly, it is mentioned that this creature has a very acute sense of smell, being particularly good at smelling blood from miles away. This sense of smell could be composed in one of 2 ways. Their nostrils could have provided passageways for air particles to make contact with their sinuses, passing signals to the brain, or this tongue could have worked in tandem with a Jacobson's organ seen in snakes. Note that the Skullcrawlers share many similarities with these animals, so it wouldn't be too far-fetched to assume that this tongue could have picked up scent particles and scanned them under the equivalent of a Jacobson's organ.
Yeah,
this
I'd say
is not official, but plausible.
Yeah.
In terms of eyesight, we must consider that these are considered predominantly cave-dwelling creatures, explaining the reduced size of their eyes. Rather than just being guided solely by visible stimulus, these creatures—
Yeah, I'll be honest, I didn't even know they had eyes in the first place until I got a good look at the whole thing and saw that they did in fact have eyes, because like I thought these holes on the skull and everything were the eyes without having eyes, I guess. Or they just didn't have them in the first place, so yeah.
also have organs enabling them to have heat vision, picking up temperature contrasts, expanding their scope of vision, and detecting any warm-blooded creature nearby, making ambushing this animal a bit more difficult, or in this case, impossible, given that its opponent does have a pretty high internal temperature. During combat, however, this guy's eye orientation doesn't necessarily imply that it can perfectly see right in front of it, with a possible wide blind spot right in front of its face. This could easily be compensated with a head tilt, or again, just relying on its excellent heat sensors. Can this thing hear anything? There is not much info specifically detailing the level of auditory capacity of Skullcrawlers, but given that they are labeled as adept excavators, it's only reasonable to deduce that they are quite capable of picking up on slight vibrations on the ground. After all, it was mentioned that these were woken up by seismic charges, suggesting that they relied heavily on ground disturbance, further complicating any chances of ambushing this.
It's kind of like that sensory shit what's her name from Avatar, Toph uses, I think. Yeah, I think it's kind of like that. Whatever that was called.
As far as these Titans go, they have a little less amount of functional senses humans have, with humans having excellent forward-facing range of vision, capturing everything happening in front with outstanding depth perception. This is good for a Titan that wants to hurl objects with precision if the need arises. Hearing, however, would have been another enhanced ability. Just because Porco's Jaw Titan does not have any visible ears does not mean that the hearing is bad. Larger hearing organs inside this Titan would imply that it would have...
I mean, for all we know, it does have ears, but it's just covered by the hair.
...greater capability than that of humans. So, who wins the edge? Both creatures have senses that can potentially outdo the opponent in different aspects, but one of these creatures is practically unambushable in this scenario, and most difficult to be taken by surprise. And that will be the Skullcrawler, the winner of this edge.
Alright, nice.
Number 7, Intelligence.
I'm actually excited about this one, because I'm curious.
We're going to discuss the most destructive weapons that these creatures have to bring to the fight. But first, we are going to analyze the brains behind the wielding of these weapons.
So I imagine the Jaw Titan will have like the same exact intelligence of a regular human. But as for a Skullcrawler, I don't know. We're about to find out.
In terms of intelligence, there is no official info stating how smart or dumb these Skullcrawlers can get.
Okay, so it's up in the air.
Therefore, we must rely on feats seen in the films or graphic novels.
Okay.
We do know that these animals can collaborate with each other to bring down dangerous prey and spend less energy bringing a large animal down. Swarm tactics were used when wiping out most of the great apes right before Kong was born. Due to this, we can safely assume that Skullcrawlers did have developed brains capable of strategizing.
Okay.
Once they are born, they immediately go hunting. There's not much that they are scared of on this island. And once they grow to adolescence, there are not many animals here that can put an end to it. This, over time, would cause the juvenile Skullcrawler to become reckless and underestimate opponents. Adults are more shrewd and mature, taking a step back to assess the situation before killing themselves in an attempt to eat something too powerful. These Skullcrawlers have some pretty sophisticated weaponry, such as prehensile tongues and tails used for strangling, meaning that these guys do have the capability of studying the weaknesses of its prey. Identifying where the windpipe would be in a variety of different creatures, limbs, or anything that would be compromised using its array of weapons. The big drawback of these Skullcrawlers is that their voracious appetite and urgency to drop food in their stomachs would cause them to make decisions with haste, overlooking minor details that could end up costing them.
Now I want to see this animated series or movie or whatever.
Their life. The only hard limiter of Titan intelligence is that of the Titan Shifter, which in this case are humans. Human intelligence is the sole culprit as to why Homo sapiens climbed to the very top of the food chain. Second to none when it comes to strategizing, tool use, and complex communication. This sounds good for our Titan Shifter, but also note that there have been many recorded instances where humans have been outsmarted by seemingly less intelligent.
Human intelligence honestly goes up and down. Because there are some of us that are really, really smart. And then there are some of us who are really fucking stupid. And there are many, 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 many sources to go off of for both ends.
Intelligent creatures and perished as a result. However, Titan Shifters are given an edge that might change everything.
Really?
The process of passing down a Titan form is a rather gruesome procedure, where the inheritor must first turn into something known as a pure Titan, hardwired to eat other human beings. The Titan Shifter holding the power of one of the 9 Titans will be willingly consumed by the pure Titan, not only passing his or her powers down to the inheritor, but also memories. And this is not limited to lessons learned from the memories of all the past.
So it sounds like it sounds like they get whoever had the Titan powers in the past, all their memories get all combined into one and just keep on compiling into one giant massive information and everything that you just get. So they might actually just get the advantage in this.
Of this Titan. So, in our simulation, Porco Galliard, who is already an apt combatant, will also inherit the memories and perhaps some combat knowledge from the previous Titan Shifters. But these memories do not override personal traits. That's right, being at this level of cognitive ability means that we must also account for other biological weaknesses present in the higher percentile of intelligent creatures. Emotions. Porco Galliard was notorious for lacking patience and making rash decisions in the heat of the moment, trusting his ambushing ability a little too much and paying the price. In Paradis's attack on Marley, Porco was filled with rage upon learning that one of his comrades was eaten Titan, and his Titan was used to attack Marley. As a result, his rage-filled character made him recklessly attack the Attack Titan, making him prone to getting ambushed. In this situation, we will account for his...
I'm sorry, the Attack Titan? You mean Eren Yeager? I never watched Attack on Titan, but I'm pretty sure Eren Yeager isn't exactly someone you want to just randomly fuck with if you're just a Titan that isn't the Attack Titan. Well, I don't know. Like I said, I haven't seen Attack on Titan, but I figured it's not exactly something you want to go attack all willy-nilly, or any Titan, really.
Short fuse. If he gets hit or outsmarted, he might become more reckless. In terms of recklessness, however, our Skullcrawler will already come in this state in the beginning of the fight.
Yeah,
in contrast to Porco, whose haphazard habits will only arise if triggered. For this reason,
which I feel like is an
Titan will take
inevitability.
the edge in this category.
Okay.
Now let's discuss weapons. Number 8, bite effectiveness.
All right.
Up next, we are...
I don't remember what it was. I think it was the 10 worst ways to die on Skull Island, where it brought up the Skullcrawler's teeth, which which from the sound of it does not feel like something that would be nice to get bitten by at all, because they're like I don't remember the word used for it, but it doesn't sound like anything nice to be bitten by.
About to discuss the business end of both of these monsters. Skullcrawler jaws look pretty self-explanatory, but there is more than meets the eye here.
Yeah.
Apart from being able to open really wide, these Skullcrawlers do have the ability to unhinge their jaws to some degree to allow larger prey to come in, again similar to snakes.
Right.
This is probably due to their hypervorous nature, helping them eat continuously and not be held back by a prey item that's too big. And yes, this now means that our Jaw Titan here is now officially part of the menu.
All right.
The journey through this passageway is not pretty and doesn't feel good. By looking at the interior of Skullcrawler's jaws, we find that these are equipped with straight cone-like back...
Especially if you're still alive while going down that throat while firing off your gun, like... it is probably going to be a very painful process.
Facing teeth. Apart from being pointed backwards, they are also pointed inward, as if they were all pointing directly at the throat. This is both good and bad in terms of bite force. Let's explain this a bit more. This animal's hypervorism is evident even in the way this animal eats. Remember, these things always need to be consuming food, and fast. As a result, their jaws aren't really meant for chewing, cutting, or even crunching. Their only job is to make sure food goes inside their mouth as quickly and efficiently as possible, forcing the victim to slide in but not be able to crawl outwards because of the orientation of these teeth. The more the victim struggles to get out, the more it will damage itself, leaving chunks of meat, food behind for the Skullcrawler to eat, regardless of if the prey escapes or not.
Leaving chunks of meat behind.
Most of the time, the prey will have no choice but to surrender and give in and accept its fate due to the difficulty of escaping. In turn, the Skullcrawler gets to eat quickly, and if the hunk of meat is too big, then the dislocating jaws will do the trick. This predominantly flat tooth arrangement will mitigate the bite force of this Skullcrawler, causing it to have less piercing power upon clamping its jaws. It's when it pulls its mandibles backwards where the real damage is done. This peculiar method of biting is seen when Ramarak repeatedly targets Kong's neck, trying to stick its teeth deep, thus ripping flesh from the neck. Not so much slitting, but ripping the throat. A monster labeled as a Jaw Titan will most likely have a set of deadly mandibles capable of...
Yeah, you would think it would have a good bite force, considering the fact it's called the Jaw Titan, and if it didn't, then I'd be wondering why even call it the Jaw Titan in the first place.
Destructive damage, and Porco's Jaw Titan does not fall short of that description.
I figured
These jaws are made of a material that can crack into practically anything, including this ultra-hardened Titan crystal, with a breaking point many times harder than the hardest stone. Jaw Titan mandibles and teeth vary with each Titan shifter, with Porco's Jaw Titan having a double row of teeth. This outer row would actually mitigate the piercing power of these jaws because of their flat surface. Piercing strength in this case is not this Jaw Titan's virtue, it's the crushing power. Sure, these may not cut deep initially, but any flesh and tendons underneath would be severely bruised, crushed, and rendered useless if caught between these mandibles. Or worse, any prolonged grip to a skull or vertebrae would be fatal. So, who wins the edge? Both have sets of teeth that are equally important, each in their own method, but here the determining factor is the effectiveness of the bite on the opponent. In this case, we find that because of the Titan's regenerative ability, bites or damage inflicted by a Skullcrawler would eventually heal over some period of time, whereas the Jaw Titan's bite will be lethal if aimed at the right spot. This one is close, but for this battle, the Jaw Titan takes the edge for bite effectiveness.
Yeah, it's starting to look like that the Skullcrawler ain't gonna win this.
Number 9,
I could be wrong,
auxiliary weapons.
But
besides
I don't think it's gonna
lethal
happen.
bites, these two bring an additional set of weapons that could change the tide of battle. Skullcrawlers are armed with 4 additional weapons and methods of attack. Beginning from the top, recall that the Skullcrawler's head is resistant enough not only to soak up damage, but inflict it. This ramming power is seen to be capable of shattering bone and leaving the Skullcrawler unscathed and unrattled. Using its feet as clawing weapons is only viable if it uses its tail for support to grip onto another entity, such as a larger creature or another large column-like object. Here, the Jaw Titan is smaller than the Skullcrawler, so the use of these would be limited and harder to deploy. Remember that he's dealing with a very agile creature, so getting a hold of this Titan will be more difficult without a semi-ranged weapon. Fortunately, the Skullcrawler is equipped with 2 prehensile weapons, the tongue and tail. Fully extended, the Skullcrawler does have a much wider reach of attack than the Jaw Titan.
And 2 ways of restraining, which I imagine the Jaw Titan could try and restrain it too, but probably not as effective as the Skullcrawler.
This tongue aids the Skullcrawler to spend less energy reaching smaller targets, bringing it closer to its mouth instead of wasting more energy running to it. The tail is deceptively powerful as well. Another factor that will determine who wins the edge here will be strength. And it just so happens that Skullcrawlers as a whole are pretty powerful creatures, especially their tail, lined with powerful muscle fibers that allow
like I said earlier, things in media with big-ass tails tend to make more use out of it than you'd think. I mean, you have Godzilla, you have the lizard from Spider-Man, and there's probably a few other examples too where they make more use out of the tail than you'd think.
Creature to lift, strangle, and hurl heavy creatures at long distances.
I'm pretty sure dinosaurs in dinosaur movies could probably make more use of their tails too if, used often.
Adults are equipped with spiky barbs at the tips of their
tails. Then again, I don't expect a wild animal to go through the hassle of turning around and just smack you with a tail. I mean, well, maybe it could. I don't know. I mean, the Skullcrawlers seem to do it, but they're also somewhat intelligent.
Making these many
times. Then again, some other animals too. I don't know. I'm probably overthinking this.
More lethal. Our juvenile in this simulation has not developed these quite yet, so it will instead rely on its whip-like tip to inflict heavy blows. Previously, we discussed that Jaw Titans are typically equipped with sharp claws on the tips of their appendages. Because this animal moves quite fast, these creatures are also capable of rapidly slashing, violently shredding practically anything in front of them, leaving a gory mess, and easily exposing the vital organs of an unarmored opponent like this Skullcrawler. But that's as far as it goes with weapons found on this Jaw Titan's body. The rest is left to dexterity and supernatural phenomena. First, we must realize that this is still a dexterous humanoid monster with the capability of throwing objects at range or using makeshift weaponry. So, if there's anything laying around that can help the Jaw Titan in combat, it will most definitely make use of it. And finally, we must discuss that upon transformation, at least in the animated version of Attack on Titan, Titans tend to release superheated gas and emit small explosive force around the area of transformation. This could be weaponized in the event that the Jaw Titan needs to transform near the Skullcrawler. The opponent does prove to have some resistance against high temperatures such as this on the outer portions of its body. And because this animal has a total of 4 solid forms of auxiliary weaponry, the Skullcrawler will take the edge in this category.
Yeah, I figured it would.
We are almost ready to throw these in the battle arena, but let's really quickly cover the weaknesses of these two monsters. Number 10, weaknesses.
Yeah, because the only thing I know about the weaknesses when it comes to the Titan is the back of their necks. As for any other weaknesses, well, it seems like they can take damage from other stuff, but they just seem to regenerate it, so yeah.
Already discussed that a major weakness of these two monsters is their lack of armor.
Yeah.
But what else
and there's
is
also
there?
that.
One critically important factor to bring up regarding Titans is that they all share the same weakness, the nape.
Yep.
This is because upon transformation, the Titan shifter will be attached to the central nervous system of the Titan. In this universe, that just so happens to be here. Because of this, these Titans can get injured practically anywhere and be
isn't there like, can't they like actually be torn out of the Titan too? Because I thought I saw something like that. I think. I don't know. Like I said, I have not seen Attack on Titan. I've seen very, very, very small bits and pieces and no little information about it.
To regenerate over time, except this spot, which is where the Titan shifter is housed. A slice or injury 1 meter and 10 centimeters across would critically injure the nervous system of the Titan and the Titan shifter underneath, causing it to potentially die instantly.
Yeah.
A fatal injury to the Titan shifter himself would also mean that it won't be able to transform again into a brand new Titan body. To prevent this injury, this Jaw Titan will have to constantly worry about the Skullcrawler's tendency to injure the neck of large creatures. Besides the thin skin.
Yeah, I heard that's a tendency a lot of stuff in the MonsterVerse / Kaijuverse has, is to go for the head. So, yeah, there's yeah, so, you know, you won't be seeing any Thanoses telling you to go for the head in this universe.
And that wraps around the Skullcrawler,
they already
these
do it.
animals don't seem to have any other weaknesses due to their resiliency. Except one, blasts, which was the only force capable of dispatching this Skullcrawler seen here. Blasts cause concussive damage. Something like an explosion can create shockwaves that travel through the air that can exert significant pressure on nearby objects, and in this case travel through the body of the unarmored Skullcrawler, damaging organs underneath.
But can, well, I don't think the Jaw Titan can do blast damages.
In this case, the combination of this blast and high heat compromised the heat-resistant skin of the Skullcrawler, causing it to succumb to lethal injuries. But this must be aimed directly at the torso. Additionally, the Skullcrawler does have a more robust body and stronger skeletal frame compared to the much lighter Jaw Titan. In this battle category, the Skullcrawler will take a close edge when it comes to weaknesses.
Yeah, I figured it would.
X Factor. Both of these creatures are old enough to have witnessed death multiple times.
Yeah.
Their victims would have been on the receiving end of some of the most devastating weapons the world has ever seen, inflicting tons of pain. It is here where both of these might have a psychological shock. Let us explain. Once again, Skullcrawlers are driven by the said hyper-adrenalized state that requires them to kill all the time. But another side effect would have been increased pain tolerance. We witnessed Skullcrawlers get repeatedly injured time and time again without squirming too much.
Yeah, like, imagine you'd feel a little uneasy if, you know, you hit something with, you know, a giant-ass tree log and then a giant-ass boulder, and then it gets up still willing to fight as if it didn't happen in the first place. I imagine you would have, you know, some form of, you know, of caution when that happens, or just straight-up fear. These guys just might be one of the few definitions of Black Air Force energy, honestly.
Witnessing an injured Skullcrawler ignore the injury and seemingly not scream in pain, this will cause confusion and perhaps a bit of panic to the opponent.
Exactly.
Causing something called demoralization to a highly emotional creature like a human. But this
the Jaw, we already went over the fact that this Jaw Titan, or the ones we're working with specifically, has been known to lose himself to emotions, so that might play a huge factor in this.
Also the case with the Skullcrawler. Titan shifters do not feel pain to the extent that humans do when they're inside their Titan, losing entire limbs and not reacting the way they normally would if their actual arm was shot or ripped off. For a Skullcrawler, this will be extremely off-putting, causing a sense of confusion and potentially altering its initial strategy at the last minute.
Okay, well, never mind.
We are now ready to unleash the Jaw Titan and Skullcrawler to the battle arena in a fight to the death.
Alright, as much as I would like to go, I'm rooting for the Skullcrawler, but I'm pretty sure the Jaw Titan's gonna win. I could be wrong.
The Skullcrawler, with its resilient serpentine build and powerful weapons, wins the edge in mass, senses, auxiliary weapons, and in being slightly less vulnerable. The agile Jaw Titan goes full offensive, with winning the 3 locomotive attributes of agility, speed, and stamina, intelligence, and bite effectiveness. This simulation will take place on Skull Island terrain, where both the Jaw Titan and Skullcrawler can fight to full potential. There can only be one survivor. Only one will walk out of this alive. coming up. Skullcrawler versus Porco Galliard's Jaw Titan.
Alright, let's see it. I want the Skullcrawler to win, but it ain't looking like it's gonna happen. But hey, who knows? One thing I do expect to do is put up one hell of a fight. Oh, okay. Well, you better get your ass down there. Oh, he there. He's already there. Well, better go ahead and get your ass transforming. There we go. Alright. There we go. Bite his head off! Alright, we already got a hit in. Nice. Oh, I should have kept him restrained instead of throwing him. Okay. And, okay, he's taking advantage of the crawler. Yeah, Skullcrawler can't do that as well. Oh, okay, we're showing text in this too, okay. Yeah, pain tolerance, bitch. Oh, that's, you do not want to aim for that. The heart, sure. Alright, you gonna start throwing rocks? You just might. Okay. There we go. Nice. Oh. Okay, come on. I should go for the head. Come on. Thanos made it clear. Go for the head. Or the neck in this situation. Yeah, it needs to eat. I don't think it cares that you're Titan. Alright. Oh, jeez. Alright. Grab it with your tail. There you go. Get it off. There we go. Alright, they are struggling to hit each other now. Come on. Oh, he's going for it. Oh. Shit, did it bite its jaw off already? I think it's over, yeah.
The end results of this simulation bring forth the Jaw Titan as the winner of this
that doesn't surprise me.
Fight. So, why did the Jaw Titan win? Upon checking on the key moments of a confrontation between both of these combatants, we find that the locomotive attributes and the Jaw Titan's exclusive supernatural ability to ignore pain and remain functioning were the key reasons why it came out as the victor. Given that the Skullcrawler has excellent senses, it was practically impossible to ambush the Skullcrawler, starting this confrontation with a head-on encounter. The Skullcrawler immediately spots the smaller opponent. He's hungry, so he wastes no time. The Skullcrawler is faster than he looks, but still not able to land a bite to the even more nimble Jaw Titan, who turns this evading maneuver into an attack. But the Skullcrawler is also fast, capable of getting a hold of the Jaw Titan's body, and with its immense strength slams him into the
restraining
nearby
it didn't seem to help
flat.
as much as I would have liked it to.
This was a hard blow, but Porco inside remains unscathed. Time to assess what just happened. Porco buys himself some time and retreats to higher ground to figure this thing out. Amazed at this Skullcrawler's resilience, he now figures that he must not waste time and go for the two most vital organs. Time for round two. The Skullcrawler quickly reverses the Jaw Titan's incoming attack and uses its tongue to position the Jaw's head inside its mouth, shaking him violently but getting injured in the act. No big deal. The Skullcrawler proceeds to rip skin and flesh from this Titan's arm. Food is food, and Porco gets filled with rage. Knowing that a frontal assault is more difficult, he now opts to attack from the side. dodging the Skullcrawler's charge and going berserk on this creature's back. But the crawler still doesn't want to die and manages to knock the Titan to the floor. In a last act, the Jaw Titan burrows deep into the insides of the Skullcrawler while disabling the crawler's bottom jaw with its crunching bite. This is too much for the Skullcrawler, who succumbs to this rapid attack. Being able to move its limbs quickly also means that its clawing attack would inflict injuries at higher speeds, allowing the Jaw Titan's practically unbreakable weapons to easily carve into the Skullcrawler's vital organs. The haphazard
and this is just me coping. I'll straight up admit this is me coping, but I would totally lose against the big one.
nature of the Skullcrawler once again proves to be a detrimental factor in this fight, and the more astute and agile Jaw Titan proves that evasion can sometimes be the best defense.
Yes, it can be.
The Jaw Titan is one of the rare examples of where pure offense can sometimes win the day.
Yes, it
Not
can.
only giving it victory, but giving us one of the bloodiest crossover matchups in cinematic history.
I guess, yeah.
Special thanks to our team of researchers, animators, and artists that helped.
Yeah, it was a good fight, though. My stance on the Kaiju-verse just heavily beating the shit out of the Attack on Titan universe still stands, though. Like, I don't think they'd win against a clash of the universes. Like, especially with Godzilla, King Ghidorah, a bunch of other stuff, too. Like, it ain't happening. But again, that's just me coping. I'll admit it, I'm coping. But I can accept that sometimes, you know, sometimes I'll lose like that. And, well, yeah. Also, I think there are some ways where the fight could have ended differently, but I feel like it does go to the Jaw Titan most of the time. Like, at least 80% of the time. Maybe even more than 80% of the time. Who knows? It's... yeah. But it was still a cool fight, and the Skullcrawler did put up one hell of a fight regardless, which, I mean, I don't know what the hell you were expecting out of a Skullcrawler. I mean... that's Skullcrawler. But yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and end it here. That was, anyways, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Check out the original video in the description below. Go support Goji Center. They make really kick-ass content. And without further ado, hope you all have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.